Hello, I'm Recky. Welcome back for another severe weather reaction. And this one is the Weather Channel and the storm stories. Done a couple of those. I have enjoyed them, if you can enjoy, and you know what I mean. This is Little Sioux. Is it? I think it's Sioux. Hold on.
Sioux.
Little Sioux. I'm learning. Little Sioux tornado, and this was 2008. In the states, this is what it says on the description. Iowa is known to be in Tornado Alley, but the western region mainly avoided twisters until 2008, when an unrelenting tornado barreled through the area, causing widespread devastation. And we're going to take a look at it, well, shortly. If you do enjoy this, don't forget to smack the like and, of course, hit that subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. A big thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon or channel membership. Thank you. Big shout out to the Supreme Tier donors over by Patreon and, of course, channel membership. Big shout out. Thank you. Personal shout outs goes to the ultimate supporters. We got Deja, Wald, Dwayne, Dana, Troy, Robert, Matt, Barbara, and Kathy. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we're going to find out what happened.
Coming directly at us.
Okay, I'm going to go back a bit, and I'm going to turn down the volume a bit.
There's a big dark gray wall coming directly at us.
It sounded like 3 freight trains going on over above us, so you couldn't hear anything.
The tornado is right over us right now.
All the tables that were bolted down were gone and ripped out from in the floor. It was just really bad.
All I wanted was to see Kevin, and they said, come with us. I said, well, can I see him? And I just said, come with us. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's something else here that they're not telling me.
They used the word fatalities.
From the Weather Channel, this is Storm Stories with meteorologist Jim Cantori.
All right.
June 11, 2008. Violent weather is creeping across the plains of the Midwest. The warm, moist afternoon air of an early summer day is churned by an approaching cold front out of the west. A tornado watch is issued in western Iowa.
We knew that this massive storm front was going to be coming through the area.
After all, Iowa is known to be in Tornado Alley. But this section of the state bordering Nebraska has mostly been spared deadly twisters that sporadically wreak havoc in these parts.
It's the tree damage, the farm outbuilding sort of thing, but nothing as far as for residents or any injuries.
That's about to change as an unrelenting twister barrels straight for the area. The funnel forms in Burt County, Nebraska, about 6 miles southwest of the camp, overseen by Ranger Nathan Dean. He thinks it's just another storm.
It was a normal circumstance, and again, they were preparing for a thunderstorm, but big difference between preparing for a thunderstorm and a tornado.
The only campers at the Little Sioux Ranch are 117 elite Boy Scouts from Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota. They are attending a leadership camp for the week. The Scouts range in age from 13 to 18 years old.
Cool.
They're accompanied by 10 adults. They've been at the ranch several days already and have seen.
I used to attend, I was in the Little Scouts called Young Eagles. It was considered a bit nerdy when I was younger, but I did enjoy it.
Some unsettled weather.
It's been a pretty wet week, actually. And that morning was pretty rough. The wind came up a little bit stronger, and wind and rain came down a little heavier, and before we knew it, people were chasing their breakfasts and their plates across the valley.
But the winds die down, and the boys get back to their routine, learning to use GPS systems in the wilderness. The Scouts have no idea a tornado is on its way, and that the survival skills they are learning will soon be put into practice. Because the campsite sits in a valley, they're cut off from most communication. cell phone reception is spotty, and there are no televisions at camp.
What we did have was a weather radio from NOAA that one of our adult staff, Dr. Denny Crabb, constantly monitored.
Storm reports on the radio concern camp leaders enough they decide to make dinner in the shelters instead of outside. The red troop goes into the north shelter, and the green troop in the south shelter, about a half-mile away.
This really seems kind of silly. We were taking this action for fear of bad weather when you looked up in the sky and there was hardly a cloud to be seen.
But these are the Boy Scouts, after all. Their motto, be prepared.
The wind had picked up a little bit. The clouds had closed in a little bit, and I started thinking, well, all right, maybe this wasn't such a bad idea. That really there was something to this.
The National Weather Service issues a tornado warning. A line of intense thunderstorms begins to move in. Less than a half-mile south, Camp Ranger Nathan Dean is at home with his wife and 3 children, 7-year-old Axton, 2-year-old Avon, and 2-month-old daughter Aisley.
I was kind of out and in listening to the weather radio because we knew you could see the storm front coming.
Dean gets a call from his stepfather telling him about the reports of a rotating funnel approaching Little Sioux. Lightning and thunder fill the sky. The rain picks up and the winds start whipping around.
And this is incredible, just looking up. There is a tornado warning, but it's clear sky, not a cloud to be seen, and the bright sun. A couple of hours later, hell breaks loose.
Dean radios the Boy Scout troops to take cover. Then they hear the telltale warning sign.
Shit.
I asked the boys in regrettably a rather unscout-like fashion to be quiet, please. I knew that it meant severe weather. So we asked all the boys to get into the shelter.
Power at the camp is cut off. Not an unusual event at this remote location.
I was out on the porch keeping a lookout for something. There was no hail. There was no sudden change in the light. It didn't suddenly turn green. There was no immediate downpour of rain. I honestly don't know what it was, but something said this is it.
A couple miles away, the horrific EF3 twister is in full force. It bears down on them with little warning and no mercy. Storm chasers shooting these pictures actually end up a little too close.
Our ears are popping. The tornado is right over us right now. Holy smokes. We are getting hit by a tornado right now. We are in the tornado.
The twister moves right toward the 1,800-acre campsite. Camp Ranger Nathan Dean and his family are at home. Their house is the first thing in the fierce funnel's path.
There's a big dark gray wall coming directly at us, a normal thunderstorm. Granted, it may have looked a little more serious for a thunderstorm aspect, but it didn't look like a tornado.
But Dean knows what it is and yells out to his family.
I knew that the front of the wall was getting close to us, and I said, you know, take cover. It's going to hit us here in, the next 30 seconds. I already had my family in the utility closet. I covered them with a blanket. I shut the door and laid down. At that time, the door was getting ripped off. For me, the first 3 or 4 seconds are, honestly kind of a blur. You hear the glass breaking and the boards popping and things of that nature, and it's just the power is so intense.
Less than a mile away, Ulrich is the only adult with 60 Red Troop scouts and youth staff in the North Shelter.
I opened the door to the shelter, stuck my head in, yelled at the boys, get under the tables, and then tried to shut the door.
The wind is so intense that Ulrich can't pull the door shut.
I'm reminded of an old Charlie Chaplin movie of him trying to shut the door and the whole house going away around it and him still trying to shut the door, because shutting the door was pointless. But it was important at the time, and I couldn't.
Inside, the scouts do as they're told and dive for dear life under the tables. 2 seconds later, it hits.
No. Oh, no.
It sounded like 3 freight trains going on over above us, so you couldn't hear anything. Everything was cracking, breaking, falling.
And then a table was thrown on top of both of us and it flew on by after it hit us. And then we just kind of huddled underneath his hoodie and we were just holding on to each other until the tornado passed. All the tables that were bolted down were gone and ripped out from in the floor. And it was just really bad.
Outside, the winds roll Ulrich over. He leans against the side of the building.
I looked up, I noticed what appeared to be a 10-foot by 10-foot section of roof blowing up to the south. And thought, I hope that's all that goes off. I hope that's it. But deep thought was not really running heavy at the time. I felt the building go away. I eventually butt up against a pile of rubble. I did have the presence of mind to actually mentally tell myself, cover your head. And so I put my arms over my head and I waited.
The twister tears its way across the camp, uprooting trees and tearing down power lines. It continues south, straight for the shelter where the Green Troop has taken cover. 46 Boy Scouts, 11 assistant scout leaders, and 1 troop leader are huddled inside.
I heard the siren go.
So this freaking tornado just went over both campsites. What are the odds?
Off, and I turned and saw the funnel cloud. It just seemed really surreal, and the gravity of the situation kind of really never hit until it hit.
Assistant Scout Leader Patrick Mason and the others take cover.
We just kind of hunkered down and put our hands over our heads and our faces between our knees.
The sheer noise of the tornado is nearly unbearable.
Like having your ears pop, except a lot worse because it was just kind of like insane pressure difference. It wasn't just like flying in an airplane and there's like that uncomfortable feeling. And then there's kind of just the fear of what might happen, especially as you heard like the trees cracking all around you.
Less than 30 seconds later, the tornado is gone. But for all of the troops spread out across the camp, and for Nathan Dean and his family, this ordeal is far from over.
My first instinct was to get out, to try to, dig my family out.
Okay. Is it a pause? It could be on it. There we go.
The tornado is right over us right now.
June 11th, 2008. An EF3 tornado with winds estimated at 136 to 165 miles an hour ripped through the Little Sioux Ranch campsite, filled with more than 100 Boy Scouts and leaders. Suddenly, all they've been taught about courage and preparedness is put to the test. The Green Troop at the South Shelter emerges shocked with minor injuries, but they quickly realize others at the camp may not have been so lucky.
And I was kind of looking around to see, kind of look at the damage and kind of awe at it. And I noticed that the tornado had come from the ranger's house. So I yelled to Alex and said, we need to go check on the ranger.
2 assistant scout leaders, Patrick Mason and Alex Lawson, walk to the ranger's house and see it's one massive pile of destruction. Nathan Dean and his family are trapped inside the rubble.
My first instinct was to get out, to try to, dig my family out. I knew something wasn't right. I started screaming a little bit more, and that's the scariest part about the whole thing is basically being buried alive, and when is somebody gonna come and save you?
And we heard them calling, help us. So we started saying, we're here, we're digging you out.
10 minutes later, one by one, the 2 assistant scout leaders pull Dean, his wife, and 3 children out of the destruction. The Deans and 2 of their children are fine, but 2-year-old Avon is crying. It sounds like he's in a bucket. He's having trouble breathing.
He had a can around his head that kind of just was can and some other debris that was covering his face.
Strongly believe that I don't think he'd have made it another 3 minutes.
Emergency personnel arrive on the scene. The 2 assistant scout leaders help keep it under control.
What are the chances, first of all, of getting hit by a tornado? Second of all, having, knowledgeable young men in camp that know what's happening or know what to do in something like this.
Wow. What a moment for them. And what a moment to actually pull through and keeping that level-minded mindset to actually go do the job that you have been taught to do. Wow.
It's a miracle the park ranger and his family survive. But bad news trickles in that the monster twister's damage isn't as forgiving to the rest of the Little Sioux campsite.
We knew there was at least 40 to 50 injuries. And, you know, seeing one and seeing the destruction of that residence, you know, I could only imagine what we had.
Less than a mile north from the camp ranger's house, the Red Troop shelter has also taken a direct hit.
I stood up and looked around. The building was gone. There was debris around. There were scouts, I didn't say everywhere, but there were scouts scattered widely.
Ulrich guides the Boy Scouts to help other members in need, boys with cuts and stuck under debris. The scout leader encounters his worst fear, a dead scout.
I tried checking for a pulse. First I tried checking his carotid artery, and his head was down on his chest, such that I couldn't get my fingers to check that. So I checked both wrists and did not have a pulse.
The scout leader moves on as the young men practice a couple of their scout laws, helping and obedience.
When I ask a boy to do something, he did it. And not only did he do it, he did it in spades. He took care of the situation. He addressed, he assessed, he acted appropriately, and he took the initiative.
Dr. Crabb, one of the scout staff members, comes from the administration building to help.
I gave him my triage list that this boy was the most seriously hurt, and this one was the second, this was the third, and this was the fourth. And so he went off to take care of them.
12 minutes later, fire and rescue personnel show up. They see a lot of trauma, broken bones, scouts trapped. Still in shock and some unaware of the consequences of the disaster, the Boy Scouts work furiously rescuing other scouts.
They were had removed most of the debris by the time we arrived, and just interacting and keeping everybody calm. It was a very, very calm scene. It was kind of surreal. The birds were singing, the sun started shining. The scouts were just marvelous.
Again, proud. I'm proud of these boys. Holy crap. Enough to make you really emotional. These boys just pulled through. Imagine normally coming to a scene like this as a paramedic or a firefighter and it's completely chaos. These guys came to a kind of mellow spot where everything was under control. But these guys.
But there are more tragic discoveries. More boys who didn't survive the twister's direct hit. Now a total of 4 scouts, 2 13-year-olds and 2 14-year-olds, all killed when a truck parked outside is propelled into the tall stone chimney and its rocks crash down on them. 48 victims are taken to area hospitals. Some of the injuries are severe, some are life-threatening. The community and parents are still in the dark as the tragedy unfolds. At their home near Omaha, parents Charlene and Taylor Willoughby are watching the sky and TV.
A newscaster broke into the weather and said, this just in, we just had reports of tornadoes that have destroyed the Boy Scout camp at Little Sioux. And they used the word destroyed.
Their son, also named Taylor, is attending the camp. On this very stormy evening, the Willoughbys set out on the 45-mile drive to the scout camp, desperate to see their 13-year-old boy.
That ride was one of the most difficult things that we've ever been through. We had the radio tuned to our local channel, NBC news station, and they kept breaking in with reports from Little Sioux, and they used the word fatalities.
Oh no. This is the bad. I mean, I love doing reactions to tornadoes and severe weather, but we know there's 4 fatalities in this one.
The EF3 tornado that flattens the Little Sioux Ranch campsite leaves tragedy in its wake. The parents of Boy Scout Taylor Willoughby are frantic to find out if their son is safe. They drive to the camp when they get a call from an emergency worker.
I said, "We have your son, he's okay." And that's when that relief just kind of washed through me.
They get in their car again, but this time for a drive to the hospital for their reunion.
And his hair is just all standing up on end, and he was covered in dirt and mud.
I was afraid for my life, and I was thinking about my parents that I'd never get to see him again. I was so happy to still be alive.
The Willoughby's drama comes to a happy end, but other families still anxiously wait to hear news of their loved ones. Fred and Lori Hanna, parents of another scout at the camp, also race to the scene from their home in Omaha. They are listening to the car radio when word comes of the 4 fatalities.
And I can't even describe to you what that feels like. The feeling of almost playing roulette. Like, what are the odds that one of them was my son?
Then they receive a call saying their son Kevin is in an ambulance.
And I just said, I kept yelling, I said, "Is he okay? Is he okay?" And we see an ambulance coming south on the other side. And I said, "That's got to be him. That's got to be him." And at that very moment, there was a U-turn spot in the median.
And I took it.
And he took it. So you turned around.
The Hannas follow the ambulance to the hospital.
We pulled in, and all I wanted was to see Kevin. And they said, "Come with us." I said, "Well, can I see him?" And I just said, "Come with us." And I thought, oh my gosh, there's something else here that they're not telling me.
Kevin is alive, but seriously injured. He has a fractured pelvis with several cuts and bruises. His parents are told he needs to be transferred to a trauma hospital. As Kevin is taken out to an ambulance, a heartwarming scene unfolds at the hospital.
Then we saw they had brought more boys in, and they just had them in their stretchers on the side of the hallway, and the boys started calling out each other's names. There's Kevin. There's Corey. This is Alex. I'm Jacob.
It's like they were roll calling each other, is what it looked like to me.
Still checking.
Just keeping track of each other still, even at that point.
The Hannas hear Kevin's account of the horrific twister.
The walls flew off of the building, the ceiling collapsed. I wasn't really holding on to anything, but I was trying to keep myself from flying away, and it was really scary.
Kevin recovers in time, but the trauma of the event, of the 4 fatalities, is not something these Boy Scouts will forget anytime soon.
Some of them have done extraordinarily well. Some of them will continue to have issues with this event for possible years to come.
The EF3 tornado that rips through the Little Sioux camp in west central Iowa leaves a trail of physical destruction that takes months to clean up. The landscape is ruined. The camp ranger's house ripped from its foundation. The north shelter torn apart. 4 Boy Scouts die. 48 others from the campsite are injured. Some of the survivors say that maybe the biggest lesson from this day is that the Boy Scout motto is more than just a motto. For the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori. Your local forecast is next.
I gotta tell you, I'm gonna make sure there's nothing else. No, I gotta tell you, that gave me the goosebumps as heck. The boys actually did a roll call in the hospital, and it just gave me the incredible goosebumps that these guys were always on duty as Boy Scouts, and being a Boy Scout in the United States might be more of a value than it is in Sweden. There's definitely Boy Scouts around here, but they went missing and gone during the 90s. And if you look at this tornado in Little Sioux, we got an EF tornado on June 11, 2019. It says that the tornado started 4.5 miles west of Little Sioux, Iowa, in Burt County, where central pivot irrigation system were tipped over and trees sustained damage. And it actually went through a Boy Scout camp. Like, why? Doesn't make any sense. If this one is new to you, you never heard about this one, let me know in the comment section. If you were there, let me know. And if you did enjoy my reaction to it, don't forget to hit that subscribe and don't forget to hit that like. I would greatly appreciate that. Until next time, I'm Recky. You stay safe.